Everyone, is Bezad here again from Make It Simple channel. Welcome back to another video of how to building a simple login app using Android Studio and Java languages. As you remember from our previous video, we initialized our layouts. We prepared our Firebase website to just prepare to accepting new user to our app. In this video, we are going to prepare our registered layout. Today, mainly we will work on our Java sides of our register page. As you see here, I've already added some patterns to check email patterns and password patterns. Do not panic if you do not have it. I just copy completely all of these codes in the description of this video. So you can just copy it and paste it in your project below your tag and above your onCreate in a field area. The first step we need to do is we have to create and initializing our page, and we have to check them if these sections from the user are empty or no. How we are going to do it? We are going to creating a method and we will call it validating user data. Just write down a comment, validating new user detail. So this is the description of our method, and the second part we are going to tell ourselves where this method is going to be used. It runs inside execute reg button. So this method I'm going to create right now, it's going to be used inside execute reg button. And I do not have this method, but I will create it in a second. So you're coming down here, you just private and void because, Boolean. The reason we set it up as a Boolean because this method is going to return a result to us to check either it's true or false. So just make sure you're using the capital B, not the lower b, because we have to get an instance from the main class. So validate user details and cross this down. Then what you have to do is just copy your comment and bring it down below here. So you are creating a container here. So you put a logd. So we have to create a debugger. As I mentioned from the previous videos, write down the way of I write it, and for every step we're going to take, I will explain to you what actually those codes are doing. I don't want to take too much time and explain this, what is debugger does, but just write it for now, and whenever we write our app, I'll show you where it's been used. So the details will be user details validated. You're coming down here, we need to get a Boolean, initialize it to, we call it result, and we initialize it with false. What does that mean is the result of this method is going to be false for now, unless we say so to return it to true. So just Boolean, the variable's name is optional, I'll just put it as a result and initialize it as a false. Then you are coming down here. Before we work on here, what we have to do, we need a couple of strings in our field area. When I say field area, above our onCreate. So we are going to use them in a quiet view method, and especially when we are going to register the user through the database. And if we use those strings inside a method, it won't be accessible by other method. So what the solution is, we have to initialize those methods we are going to use here in our field area. So it may sound a bit confusing, but let me write it down and then we will figure out how we are going to use them. Just come down to register binding, coming down here, just capital S, write down a string. So just put S full name, S email, S password, S gender. So what is that? S means that this is how I read it. It's a string, full name, string email, string password, string gender. And as you know, I've put them in an order of how we write down our XML. Again, the way of we are doing to writing our codes in the long term, it helps us to write down our codes more organized and more readable, I would say. So full name, email, password, and gender. It's full name, email, password, and gender. We initialize them here, so we don't worry about them right now. Then we are going down to our validate user details. So what you're doing is you're initializing the full name, which is a string, to an object in our XML, which is here. What we are going to use is register bending, which is here. This is our, if you call it in an easy way, this is the parent of these childs. So you need a parent, then you need a child, which is new user full name. So where is this new user full name came from? It came from the ID we're creating here. Exactly the same. Then we get a text, which is the internal for this variable is text. And then we convert it to a string and semicolon. So you're doing exactly the same thing. Then we need to have an email equals to, where is the parent, is register bending. What is the child? New user email. Get text to string. So this is not actual parent. The way of I call it parent because I want you to understand what it actually means. This is the parent of this kid. Then you're coming down, we got a s password equals to, need a parent, who is his child, new user password, get text to string. And if you remember here, just let me scroll up, sorry. So s gender, I assign it to the string. But this gender is actually a radio group. So that means we cannot assign a radio group to a string. So we have to do a quite financial way to get a radio group value as a string. So how we are going to do it? Just come down to your field area above your onCreate, below your string. Just write down private radio group here. We call it gender. We're giving a variable's name to it. Then below here, you got gender. But this gender is here. We use it equals to the parent, which is register bending, dot new user gender, which we use this ID from our gender group here in a radio group. Semicolon. So I will give a bit gap between these three together to just don't confuse yourself. Then what we are going to do is we writing down int. Just follow me right now what I'm doing, and then I will come back and I'll explain it. So it will be gender ID equals to gender get radio checked ID. Then you have a radio button. Selected gender equals to find view by ID, gender ID, string. Then we need to have s gender equals to selected gender dot get text to string. So what I've done, I initialize a gender radio group in our Java codes. Then I got a parent assigned to the kid in XML layouts, which is this radio group. Then each of these radio buttons, they have an ID. Remember, ID for our gender, male, female ID. So the value of these radio buttons, it is an int. So I initialize an int, I gave a variables a name, and then I said from this parent, which is our gender, get the checked radio button ID. So it was for our checked radio button ID is initialized to our male, unless the user choose one. For instance, if the user put a gender as a female, this is the selected ID. Then we get a checked radio button from our radio group. Then selected gender is a radio button. I'll give a name to it. And then I said the gender is being selected. It has an ID. Find that ID, which is here. I gave it to this. Then I assign this ID or this selected gender radio button, which is now is a text. Then I assign my s gender this text, get a text from that radio button and convert it to a string. Or if you do not understand, just write down in a comment and I'll explain it in more details, and I'm happy to give you more examples of how this is work. And we're going down, we need the if else loop condition. What is that means? Just let me write it down. So what is if loops condition is, we have to check if the user putting these details correct or no. If it's correct, then it will return something. If it's false, it will return something. So how we are going to, the first thing we need to check if these fields are empty or not. If they are empty, we show an error to the user which these fields are empty. We need to check if these sections are empty or not. If they are empty, we show in a toast message to the user and we ask for those details. So what we are doing is s full name, so it's a string. Oh, sorry. What have I done? Is full name dot is empty, or this signs is, it means or. Then we check the email is empty, or s password is empty. We're not checking the s gender because s gender has already, as a default, is selected to a gender. It means already has been selected, so that means it's not empty. Then you're coming down on your else curly bracket, you write it down a toast message. So write down a toast, not the widget, the actual toast here, and capital T. Then we're showing a message. In the text area we say fields cannot be empty. And if those fields are empty, this toast message pops up. Then you're coming down here below your if curly brackets, you're coming down from else if. Now we need to check if the user putting a valid email address or no. How we are going to check it? Just write down inside the else if, just quotation mark, email dot matcher, s email, which is a string, dot matches. So where is this email address came from? It came from this pattern. We use it. We are going to check if the email address the user puts in is a valid or no. Then we're going to check this pattern with this our string, which is s email here, and then match. And then if it is not match, we have to tell the user the email password is invalid. So how we are going? We need our parent, which is our register pending, dot we need a child, which is our email, dot set error, the top one, tab, and we tell the user invalid email address. Then you're coming down again, the parent, the child, request focus. Finished here, you're coming down. Now we checked our email address. Now we are going to check our password. You just exactly copy how we have done it here, but instead of email, we're checking our password. Again, quotation mark, password, capital. This password pattern is our pattern here. Then needs to check it with a matcher, which we need a string, is s password. Then coming out, did match. And here, exactly the same thing. We tell the user the password is too weak. So how we are going? We need a parent. We need a child, which is our password. And then we need to set an error. Password is too weak. However you want it, you can write in a message. It should contain special character. 1, 2, 3. Then parent, child, request focus. Oh. Password dot request focus. Done. Then you're coming down to else. So we checked if they are empty, we're showing a message. If it's invalid email address, we show an error. If it's a weak password, we show an error. If none of them is true, that means the result, it turns to true. So you just write down the result, which we created as a Boolean here. If they're not true, that means that converted to true. What you're doing is result equals to true, semicolon, and you're coming down here outside of the curly bracket in our method. You just return result, semicolon. That's it. This is how we checked our user email and password and gender confirmation. So we're minimizing our validate user details. So where we are going to use it, we are going to use it in our execute button. Register button, executed. This is what it says, where it runs. It runs inside on create. Private, oh, sorry, private, not protected. Private void. And we just copy the name here, which we created on our validate user. Let's come down here and paste it here, curly bracket, copy your comment, and creating a container. logd, we need a debugger, register button executed. Then we are coming down. How we are going to check? We are going to check the execute reg button, the button here we created. So how we check it? Just we need a parent, register bending, dot, we check the button here, register button from our XML layout, and this is, it shows the value of it. Dot set on click listener. Then we need a new capital ON on click listener. Do not worry about view, just write down as the way of I write down. Just click on tab and it automatically creates for you. So when the user clicks on register, we need to run this method inside it to say if the value or the returns of this method is true. If it's true, then we'll move on. If it's not true, we show an error or we tell the user what went wrong. So if validate user details, this returns, we assume the return is true. Then what we are going to do is start activity, new intent. We are going from register page dot this to a welcome page, which we do not have the welcome page now. I'm just quickly going and create it. How you are creating it? Go on top left hand side on your project, click, come to your app and Java, the top one, the top label or whatever is your profile's name is. Just right click, come new, scroll down to here to activities, and we need the empty activity. How we name it? We just name it welcome page. This is our XML layout, or just cut off the XML or activity off and click on finish. Now it is ready. We do not need it, just we needed to initialize it to just transfer the user. Then we need to send the user to welcome page.class. Now we run our app to see how it goes. Sorry, I forgot, before running our app, we have to initialize this method inside our onCreate. As you see, is a faded. That means this method hasn't been used anywhere. As I write down on our comment, that method should run inside our onCreate. So just quickly go to your onCreate, expanded, below your view, just write down execute reg button. Minimize it, minimize it. So we have our container wrap, and you run your app again. Our app is ready. We landed on our login page. Just click on here. We transferred the user from our login page to our register button. Now let's click on register, see what comes up. If you click on register, a toast message comes up as a field cannot be empty. I'll do it one more time. Field cannot be empty. That means the fields are empty. We just write a full name. Let's say as admin. We are going to check if the user writes down an invalid email address, what comes up. Just put add, password 12, and gender is already selected as a male. Now click on register. Now it shows, it comes up as an invalid email address. So that shows our app, it works perfectly. Now I check the app maker, we make up something, yahoo.com. So that is correct, that it follows the pattern. Then now it should give as an error from our password. Just click on register. As you see, password is too weak. This is how the message shows. Now is gender has been selected, and click on register, and now we are on our welcome page. As you see, nothing shows here, and in our next video we are going to register the user, transfer the data to the database, and how to send the confirmation email to the user. Again, if we're going to recap what we have done here, we haven't done anything major. I've just added 2 patterns to our app, which, as I said, I put them down in the description of this video. You can just simply copy and paste them on your project. Then we created fields area strings as a S. I put them in the front. Then I initialize our radio group on our field area again. Then we created a method which as a Boolean, that means it shows and returns a result, or it returns a result as a true or false for us. Then here we initialize those strings to the widgets on our XML layouts. And then here down below we check if they are empty, or if the user puts an invalid email address, or if they are going to put a weak password, which shows error. And if none of those conditions is true, that means the result as a Boolean, it will turn to true, and the bottom will return the result, which is actually as a true. Then we're creating a method to execute our register button. So we assign it to our, whenever the user clicks on it, it will check if the Boolean or the results of our Boolean method is true. If it's true, then it will send the user from our register page to our welcome page. Please, again, this is the very important part of these videos, is follow the way of I do the methods and follow the way of I names the method. Trust me, it will be easier for you to follow up, and if something's went wrong and you're asking the question, then I know what you've done wrong, and it will be easier for both parties to chase up the error and fix it as quick as they can. Again, if you do have any question, please write down on your comment and I will respond them as quick as I can. And thanks for your time and watching these videos. Until next video, see you later.